Good morning.
For July, we explore the principle of creativity. I advocate for freedom of thought. Today's topic is liberation through an empowered consciousness. Ernest Holmes wrote from an empowered perspective, your thought operates independently of conditions and has the possibility of transcending circumstances as they now are and causing new ones to be created. So I'll read that again. Your thought operates independently of conditions and has the possibility of transcending circumstances as they now are and causing new ones to be created. Let us now use the creative power of our thought to cause new circumstances to be created. Affirm out loud with me, I am a center of divine operation, an inlet and outlet for the creative power of the divine, given the freedom of choice. I therefore choose to speak with authority, knowing my word is the power of creation unfolding. I intentionally participate in co-creating a world that works for me and for all beings. And so it is. Thank you, Mary.
Liberation through an empowered consciousness. So, what are the steps to an empowered consciousness? That's what I'd like to explore today. But before I do that, I'd like to look at the nature of the divine, because until we get clear on that, then we're still dabbling in some old beliefs that really don't support us. And so, in order to help us get focused on that, I'd like to read something to you from Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the book A Conversation with God and all the series that came after that, because there was one particular quote in there that really clarified the nature of the divine and our nature, and it goes like this. If you believe that God is some omnipotent being who hears all your prayers, says yes to some and no to others, and maybe later to other ones, you are mistaken. By what rule of thumb would God decide which prayers to answer and which ones to not, or which ones to accept? So we have to let go of that idea of some being out there arbitrarily deciding whether our prayers should be answered or not. The next one says, if you believe that God is the creator and decider of all things in your life, you are mistaken. You are mistaken. It is not God's function to create or uncreate the circumstances or conditions in your life. It's not God's function to create or uncreate the conditions or circumstances of your life. I wanted to repeat that. That's important. God created you in the likeness and image of God. You have created the rest. You have created the rest through the power God has given you. God created the process of life, and God gave you free choice to do with life as you will. In this sense, your will for you is God's will for you. That was a really powerful thing for me some time ago when I read that. I read that right when they came out, that was a long time ago. And I had been studying this, but for some reason, that particular phrase just really said it to me. It's like, let go of the idea that I'm a puppet and that there's some being out there that's deciding which direction my life is going. We've got to let go of that. That's old world belief. And understand we are co-creators of our lives. We have been given the power of creation, and that's the symbol that I talked about a little bit earlier. We get to choose. We have choice. And so our beliefs and our assumptions that we carry with us determine our lives until we change them. And we change them one thought at a time by directing our thoughts. So that's one aspect, is that overall idea of what the divine is and who I am. And so just to help you firm that in your minds, this is what I'd like you to do right now. And I'm going to say it for myself first. I am God having a Kathleen experience. You get how that goes? So now I want you to say, I am God, and then, okay, I am God having a Kathleen experience. What are you?
I am God having a Sharon experience.
Mm-hmm. We are all individualized expressions of God. Powerful, magnificent, unlimited being. Breathe that in. Now, many of you have heard this before, but let's really anchor that in, because that is the truth. We can let go of the idea that there is some outside force deciding what's happening in our lives. The other underlying thing that is so powerful, and some of the early New Thought people called it chemicalization. But here's what Nietzsche called it. Nietzsche, the great philosopher, he said, you must have chaos in yourself in order to give birth to a dancing star. You must have chaos in yourself in order to give birth to a dancing star. The chaos, the falling apart of our lives, acts as an evolutionary driver, a catalyst that revitalizes and activates the creative power within us. Because our natural response is, well, I don't want this. I want to create something new. And the ideas start flowing in, and the solutions and everything else. So chaos has its point. And also think about it. If there's there's something in your life you're not enjoying going on, then of course it has to dissolve in order for the new thing to be born. It has to dissolve. So chaos, or the falling apart, the breakdown before the breakthrough, that's a great way. That's one of the ways I like to think of it. The breakdown before the breakthrough. Again, this is all in how we reframe, or how we frame how life works, that helps us to live an empowered life instead of to be feeling like we are victims of life or to be in reaction to life. This is about being in a place of power, which is what we are. It's owning our own divine nature. So Anthony Ray Hinton we know he was convicted of a murder that he did not commit. And for 30 years, he was on death row. And he was in the process of everything in his life falling apart. I mean, if you can imagine, one day he's working, and the next day he's arrested, and then convicted, and then on death row. And falling apart. Everything's falling apart. There he is. The beautiful thing that happened, though, is that it activated something within him. It activated a creative new idea of what he wanted for his life. Now, and originally what he wanted was simply to be free. And then after a while he said, no, I don't want to just be free. I want people to know I'm innocent. And then he kind of went on from there, and he began to use his creative imagination. He says, no, I want a really good life when I get out. He imagined himself traveling the world. He imagined himself being married to different famous people. I mean, his imagination was really vivid. And so what happened when he finally did get out it took just amazing feats of fortitude and belief and and a lot of action on the part of his civil rights lawyer, but he finally was released. And here's one of the interesting pieces of that. You know, that was the first time that the Supreme Court completely and totally agreed, 100% unanimous on something. That's what I had read somewhere. Wow. They agreed. So the U.S. Supreme Court were the ones who finally got things turned around, because in Alabama, they were just going to stick to what they had. They were not going to let him go. So, you know, we can look at that and say, that is just amazing how all of that unfolded. And again, think of the creative stuff that was going on in his mind. We are powerful creators. He is God having a Ray Hinton experience. And so what happened then is, when he got out, not only did somebody come up and say, hey, I'd like to write your life story. Can you work with me on that? So he has a best-selling book. He's on Oprah. He's traveling the world. He's paid by the civil rights organization that freed him. He's now paid by them to be a speaker, and paid by other organizations to come and speak to them, including lawyers. And we saw last week that one of our members' husband, who's a lawyer, has a photo with him. You know, so he's, and his message is getting out there because he knew the consequences of the way that things are going in the social justice system. So he is now an advocate for social justice reform. He is living the life that he wanted to live now through his imagination.
Is he married to Halle Berry yet?
Oh, that's a good question. So now that we understand the context of it all, the nature of God, our nature, we are God having our human experience, whatever the names that we have here in this human experience, we're these infinite beings who are eternal and who are just here on planet Earth in this particular incarnation, having this particular experience. So here are the 3 steps that we're going to be talking about in living an empowered life, liberating ourselves, truly liberating ourselves once and for all. And the first one is to affirm our truth. The next one is act as if. And the final one is to reframe the past. So let's talk about the act as if. There is a 17th century poet by the name of William Henley, and he was confined from age 12. He contracted tuberculosis, and he was confined to bed. He actually ended up having to have one of his legs amputated. His other foot was constantly in pain, and he was in bed most of the time, and yet he was determined that he was going to be a writer, and he became a famous poet through this. So one of the most famous poems of his is Invictus. Anybody hear of that one? Yeah. And this is what he did. And you know, all of us have learned about I am statements, so listen to this one. He said, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. That was his affirmation, and that was in his poem. That particular poem is what Nelson Mandela credits for his spiritual support that helped him hang in there and to end apartheid. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I am statements, so powerful because the I am is our nature. So what kind of life would you love to live? And you know, even though we may pretty much love our lives the way they are, I bet we have some even bigger visions. Yes? What kind of life would you love to be living? What's the next version of yourself, in other words? And then, what are the reasons that you're not living that? What are the reasons you're not living that? Your reasons are your false beliefs. The reasons why you're not living your life are your false beliefs. So remember those questions. What life would I love to be living? And then, what are the reasons why I'm not? The reasons are your false beliefs. So what we are to do is to change the consciousness, the false beliefs, in order to be living the vision. The vision's already perfect in the mind of God. We're learning this in the visioning class, right? Those who are taking the visioning class. The vision's already perfect in the mind of God. The vision is a beautiful, perfect template. Our job is to get out of the way by changing our beliefs. I am statements are a powerful way to change them, and it's really the qualities that we would like to experience that ultimately is what we want to get ourselves into feeling. So whether it's just something like I am successful, I am abundant, I am strong, whatever that is, whatever it is for you, that's your affirmation. So let's say together, okay, let's do this. I am whole.
I am whole.
I am abundant.
I am abundant.
I am successful.
I am successful.
I have immense, well, that's not an I am. I am self-confident.
I am self-confident.
All right? Those become our mantras then to shift our consciousness and get into alignment with our truth, because that's our truth. The other stuff is just a lie that we're telling ourselves. That means that those other things that we give as the reasons why we're not living that life. So as we use I am statements, we're aligning with our truth. In other words, we are being masters of our fate or our destiny. We're clearing the subconscious mind of beliefs that limit us. We are raising our vibration and aligning with our dreams. We are causing new conditions and circumstances to show up in our lives. In truth, then, we are being masters of our fate and captains of our soul. So that's telling ourselves the truth. The next step is act as if. We have been learning in visioning that as we ask deep questions and we go into a deep state of receptivity in full unity with our divine selves. And so visioning is different from visualization. In visioning, we are literally going into a state of meditation and receptivity and asking, what is God's highest idea of itself? Remember, I am God having a Kathleen experience as Kathleen. And as we listen deeply, we begin to get impressions and we can start writing them down. And it says, what does it look like, feel like, sound like? So what are we doing? We're actually catching a higher vision, and we are putting ourselves into the experience, acting as if it's already happening. What does it look like, feel like, sound like? It looks like this, and it feels like this, and it sounds like this, to be living this life that I love. Wow, yes. So we get ourselves into that state of acting as if. When we do that, we are very powerfully and effectively using the universal law.
It works.
It works. Yeah. Okay, reframe the past. That's the final one. Reframe the past. Anthony Ray Hinton made a practice of praying for his enemies, forgiving them and praying for them. These are, people that prosecuted him, people that incarcerated him. He prayed for them. He prayed for their good. He prayed for their freedom. He prayed for the highest and best for them. Wow. Right? But he knew, he understood that he had to do this in order to release himself from the past and to reframe the past as being for him, to use it for his furtherance, for his movement forward, so that he could show up as that presence of love right there on death row, so that he could reach out and help his fellow prisoners. So the opposite of that would have been to stay in victim consciousness. Victim consciousness is when we blame others or we shame ourselves. And it keeps us stuck in a vicious cycle of more of the same, more victimization experiences and more misery. It simply doesn't work to get us where we want to go. So as we move into an empowered state, we learn the importance of reframing the past. So here's the way I've reframed my past. You know, at one point in time, I had a long-term chronic illness. It's gone. I haven't had it now for years, since like 2000. But when I first got into this teaching back in 1990, I was steeped in a continuous thing that I could not seem to shake no matter which direction I went. So I found this beautiful spiritual teaching that's really liberated me. But the way I look at it is that particular chronic illness was the chaos, the evolutionary driver that caused me to look for solutions. I had a state of mind that was not very healthy, and it showed up in my body. And the way out was not the typical things that most people do to heal. I mean, I tried all that. It didn't work because I had to change my consciousness. And so this teaching has helped me to do that. And now I'm able to be a person that shares this truth with other people, like you. I am living the life that I love. I'm living the life that I love because of what I found. Because of that illness. That illness has brought me to where I am now. It was the evolutionary driver. So you see, as you begin to reframe your own life in this way, things can change dramatically. And what you do is you get yourself out of that old victim consciousness and you get yourself into a place of empowerment. You free yourself, you liberate yourself into a state of empowerment. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, well let's use a spiritual mind treatment then by Ernest Holmes that pulls all three of these together. So I invite you to close your eyes. And it says, I allow myself to dip deeply into my divine nature. Another breath, please. And go even deeper. Each one of us has within us a deeper nature, an eternal unity with God, the living Spirit. It is more than our human selves. It is where we merge into the being of God. So as we dip deeply into our divine natures, let us realize that entering the secret presence of the divine will require us to shed that which does not belong, that which does not belong to the kingdom of good. So we deliberately drop the blame, the hurt, and the shame right here and right now. I invite you now to just consciously drop all of it. We cannot enter this gate of good with a sword in our hands. So we let go of everything and we turn to that divine depth within our own nature, wherein the Spirit of God, the Spirit of love, and the Spirit of peace dwells with calm serenity. breathe. We withdraw into that place within us that has never been hurt, never been sick, and has always and forever lived in eternal peace. This is the kingdom of God, which is good. And this inner kingdom within, which is all peace, all power, and all perfection, is where we can now drop all hate, all fear, all animosity, all resentment. We cast out of our consciousness every doubt and every uncertainty. So just imagine yourself now casting it all out. We know that we are entering into that atmosphere of wholeness and happiness and completion where there is no fear, no doubt, no uncertainty, no lack, no want. Here is wholeness, perfection, peace, power, beauty, love, supply, and life. We know the abundance of this life is showered upon us now. We are guided and guarded into right action, into right decision, daily, hourly, minutely. The principle of intelligence directs us. The presence of love warms us. The peace of God fills us. We are led into the pathway of this peace, into the knowledge of this perfection. We are conscious that the indwelling God is filling, instantly renewing our bodies, absolutely eliminating from us whatever there is that does not belong, coordinating every function, every organ, every action, every reaction, our circulation, our assimilation, and elimination, making it all perfect. The life principle of every part of our being is perfect and harmonious and now functions in us perfectly. Discord is changed into natural order of harmony and wholeness. We let that divine power be exactly what it is in us. We are no longer afraid, for perfect love casts out all fear. Our faith destroys all fear. We awake from the dream of fear to the vision of reality, where there is no shadow of which to be afraid. We awake from the dream of lack and want and unhappiness to the knowledge of harmony, of abundance, and of peace. And so repeat after me, I am the master of my fate.
I am the master of my fate.
I am the captain of my soul.
I am the captain of my soul.
I give thanks for that.
I give thanks for that.
I release this into the universal law of mind.
I release this into the universal law of mind.
And
And
so it